Today on Won't You Be My Gamer, we are joined by Justin Donovan, who is an underwater archaeologist, professor at UCLA. Justin, do most people know that underwater archaeology is a thing?
No, my wife actually thinks I work with dinosaurs.
Yeah. She doesn't believe you. She's like, where do you go every single day?
She didn't know what archaeologists did.
Dinosaurs a good guess, though. That's in the same category.
Jurassic Park area, yeah.
We'll be going to the bottom of the ocean to figure out what can kill you down there and maybe what can save you
Yeah.
a little bit too. We'll be playing This or That, where we take two items and see what we think would be the most interesting archaeological discovery 1,000 years from now. And we'll also be talking about the archaeology of skate parks. Yeah. Nicole, what are we playing?
We are playing Subnautica. And, hold your breath because we're going to be underwater a lot.
You're an alien in this?
Yes, I actually am because this is an alien planet, so I am in fact the alien, if you really think about it. I crash landed into this ocean. There's my ship. There is my escape pod. Can't go there. And my only refuge is here. And all I can do is explore down here.
How similar is this to what you do, Justin?
This would probably be my worst nightmare, but I say the underwater exploration is pretty on point. We usually jump off of a boat or some type of vessel, so that would be our sort of stationary point. But yeah, we are out in the middle of nowhere in the ocean sometimes, a lot of times when we do our work.
So when you go scuba diving, you're usually diving with an archaeological purpose or question or intent?
Yeah, definitely. We try to know either what we're looking at or generally where we're looking before we get in the water. We have what we call a dive plan, so we know how deep we're gonna go relatively, how long we're gonna stay under, and what we're trying to find. We don't always find it, but.
Do you sometimes find something else instead that you weren't looking for?
We often find things that we weren't looking for instead. It can be things that people leave at the bottom of the ocean that pick up as metal. Sometimes it's completely unrelated to what we're looking for.
How do you know where to search or where to go and do these dives?
That's the golden question. Sometimes it comes from local fisher people that will tell us that they've seen things. Yeah.
Wow.
Oftentimes these wrecks tend to be like habitats for marine life. Sometimes if we're looking at historical stuff, we'll go through archives first and actually read documents about where these wrecks would have been. And then sometimes we have actual GPS points. There's a whole series of activities that used to happen back in the day, illegally now, but there used to be people that would hunt for these wrecks and try to find gold and silver, and so.
Did they ever find that?
Sometimes they did, but oftentimes they would find these other historical wrecks that had no financial values, so they would just note it and keep moving, and then we go back as archaeologists and look at them.
Okay, so it sounds like some of this local conjecture that you're getting, or sightings from locals, does that ever lead you astray?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that. Sometimes people haven't actually dove on these wrecks, so they'll say, like, I know something is there, and then we dive on it and realize that it's a few pieces of scattered material and not really much is there. Sometimes we see things post-hurricanes or major events, and it's all covered up now, and so we can't actually access it. And then current is always the biggest issue. I mean, this game seems like it's relatively stable, and you seem to be controlling yourself well underwater, but if we get heavy current, sometimes we could be sitting there and be pushed, 2 or 3 knots at a time.
I already died once while you guys were chatting.
You're playing so well.
So do you see this, big guy here? He excreted some yellow stuff, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if it's toxic. And it was.
It's that good, okay.
So we know that, there it goes, so I'm gonna avoid that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see animals excrete things underwater.
Yes, please, in detail.
Yeah. Honestly, it's not really the marine life that's the issue. It's sometimes if you're diving too close to the boat, when you're on these smaller vessels, the toilet is literally just a hole. So if you hit the flush button and somebody's underwater, you kind of get whatever is under there. I haven't had this experience, but I do know some divers that were telling me that they saw what they thought was a jellyfish and realized it was actually toilet paper coming from the vessels.
I like how quickly we got to a scatological discussion. Are you trying to avoid aquatic life when you're underwater, or how do you respect that wildlife?
The aquatic life tends to avoid you. So we have a rule, we tend not to touch anything on the ocean floor, so we often say buoyancy is the most important, because if you don't know how to control yourself, you can easily hit the bottom and disturb a lot of wildlife and habitats. But the bigger things that swim around, they generally avoid you. They'll play with you sometimes, especially sea otters out here in California. But generally speaking, they swim around you.
I brought an otter plushie just in case.
Oh, what?
He brought that up weirdly. This is Mitch. I love the otters. The sea life of California is so vast and awesome, and probably not the right word to describe it, but friendly.
Yeah, it is. It is relatively friendly. I mean, we don't have great whites out here, so we're good.
Yeah.
Is there anything that poses a threat?
Not really. In the marine life world, yeah. I think most of the threat is just like if your gear malfunctions, that's like the biggest issue we face. We train for all the worst case scenarios. So what happens if we run out of air? What happens if, the regulator breaks or any of those things? When you get on these dive boats and you dive with people who've been diving a while, you get all kinds of horror stories. I've heard stories of people who've been left behind after the boat leaves.
Oh my
It's like rule
gosh.
number one, right? No one
Yeah.
gets left behind.
Yeah.
It's like when your dad forgets you at the gas station.
It's crushing on many levels. Generally speaking, we don't have too many issues with the underwater world. The biggest issue is other boaters and actually people. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize, like if you have your motorboat, it's very dangerous around divers because divers can come up to the surface and if they get hit by that propeller, it's lights out.
Did you do land archaeology before doing underwater archaeology?
I did. So I was trained most of my career as a land archaeologist. And I started scuba diving probably in 2016.
Did you do scuba diving to get into underwater archaeology? Like which came first?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I was specifically, there was a group of divers who reached out to me to get us involved in underwater archaeology, and they said we have to train you first. So as soon as I got trained, I started doing underwater archaeology.
I saw in one of your videos the situation in which you guys, they were like, okay, well, if we train you, can you teach us?
Yeah.
It was very much the plot to Armageddon.
It's like what's easier to teach the astronauts to drill or to teach the drillers to go to space?
That's a good one. I gotta reach into that one.
Are there different approaches that you have to take for gathering information or looking at these artifacts?
Yeah, definitely. I tell people like archaeology on land, we're often excavating in layers, so we go down in sections. Most of the work we do underwater, it tends to be more like a plane wreck. So we often are excavating across a distance when we do underwater archaeology. But it's a lot of survey, looking at the full extent of where these wrecks are and what we might come across. Also, everything moves underwater. So you might look at a site one year and then come back the next year and it's completely scattered or completely buried or new parts come up. So
How do you deal with that then? Can you do those kind of dives far apart then? Or does it just completely make it a wash?
yeah, we often try to take advantage of opportunities to check out wrecks. And sometimes we have to go back frequently, sometimes every 5 years, every 10 years, we revisit a wreck and find new elements to it.
Do you have to remap it?
Yeah, we have to remap. Technology gets better, which helps us to remap as well. And then sometimes, people will actually pick off things of a wreck and keep them as souvenirs in the house, which doesn't help. Gives us a record of what was there.
What technology do you use to do that mapping?
The sort of basic level technology we use is number 2 pencils and what we call Mylar paper. And we literally will just sketch the wreck underwater. And sometimes
Wow.
we'll sit there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes staring at an object and getting a sketch on.
Did you also get art training, or is that a skill you have?
I did not get art training. I did spend way too many hours on YouTube learning how to just sketch objects. I think like all archaeologists need a basic level of sketching, kind of like architects.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Archaeologists are just like us.
They're just like
I
us.
learned most from YouTube.
Yeah, I tell people we're like as pseudo construction workers. Like all of our equipment comes from Home Depot, and then we take it underwater.
A lot of orange buckets.
Yeah.
A lot of orange buckets.
Are you using any mapping tech here, Nicole?
I don't really have any mapping tech, no, and I don't really have GPS. I kind of have like that orange outline is my pod, but now that it's night, it's really hard to see. Luckily, I just made a flashlight.
Oh, that's your flashlight. Oh, you made it. How'd you make it?
My ship is magic.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, you gave me a bladderfish and quartz? I made a flashlight.
Interesting. Yeah, so we do night dives. So this is pretty on point.
I know, are night dives out of necessity, or is there something special about night dives?
It's more complicated in underwater archaeology, so we prefer not to do night dives in archaeology. But in marine biology, there's fish that are nocturnal, and marine life that's nocturnal. So we see things that will either come up from the bottom of the ocean to feed that we normally wouldn't see, or sometimes we find stuff that will sleep during the day that comes out at night. Octopus are one of those things that are nocturnal. And the cool thing too is there's a lot of stuff that actually glows under black light. So sometimes we'll dive with a black light.
That's very
I
cool.
don't know if you can change up the light situation.
No, I wish.
Yeah.
Because I always choose cosmic bowling, so I would choose cosmic diving too.
Okay.
Glow
Yeah.
dark mini golf.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, night diving is a mess. You kind of leave it up to your training and hope that all goes well. You don't really know your orientation, like what's up, what's down, unless it's a full moon. But if there is no moon, it's literally pitch black, and you often are staring at your watch or your dive computer to tell you how deep you are.
Is the rule that if you don't know which direction you're facing to check which way the bubbles go, does that actually work? Or is that some old wives' tale I was sold?
That actually works, yeah.
Nicole, you have to go up for air every couple minutes, correct?
couple seconds.
But you're
Yeah.
scuba diving.
I am scuba diving. I have an oxygen tank and I've upgraded it once. My next big mission will be to upgrade my oxygen tank and then upgrade my suit to a suit that can handle radiation.
Oh.
Because if you remember my ship earlier, it's burning. It's on
Yeah.
fire, and so I can't go near it right now until I get a radiation suit.
How long can you kind of go down for in a dive?
So it depends on how deep we go. If we go down to, say, 90 feet, we have usually like 5 to 10 minutes underwater.
Wow,
with
that
a standard
little?
tank. Yeah, it's pretty short. If we're like 30 feet or less, we usually have about an hour out of here.
Okay.
It all depends too on how well you breathe. So, some of the more professional divers will actually have better breathwork practices and you can actually stay underwater longer. You're not supposed to stop breathing underwater ever, but if you breathe slower and you use less energy, yeah, you can.
Kate Winslet did it for Titanic.
That was
6 minutes, I think she held her breath for.
And then didn't she like push herself even harder for Avatar?
She did. I don't know for sure, but she's Kate Winslet. She had to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes the ocean seriously.
So what kind of training did go into this for you?
I'm technically a scientific scuba diver, so we have a certain set of regulations and tasks we have to be able to complete underwater.
So is it harder or easier for you?
It's harder. The biggest thing is there's a swim test and a breath hold test. So you essentially have to be able to swim from one side of the pool to the other, completely underwater. And then there's also like a timed swim test, so you have to be able to swim a certain number of meters across, without tiring out. We do train frequently, and so we are in the pool a lot.
I'm not going down there.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay.
That looks dangerous.
Is that fire in the ocean?
It is. Yep.
Underwater volcano.
Our producer Andy really wants us to do a breath hold contest.
Oh, shoot.
I don't know how it's gonna work because we're not underwater, but I mean we can go for it, I guess.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, my stomach growled. I had to stop because my stomach growled. I know for a fact Nicole has asthma, so this is very impressive. You do too? Oh my gosh. You guys are so weak-lunged. I should have won this. Oh, you're really doing it, huh? Let's see. Oh, I did 1,700 steps today. I wasn't checking how long we'd be going for. I just wanted to see my Fitbit. Yay.
Okay, I didn't train too well.
Wow.
I'm trying to beat me, but did I die? Oh, I just made it.
All right.
So how long has underwater archaeology been a thing for?
Yeah, it's actually fairly recent. 1960s is around when it developed. So a lot of people have heard the name Jacques Cousteau. He actually invented the scuba tank along with some other folks, which is like a pretty big deal. And so that's what allowed first people to stay underwater for a longer period of time. And then underwater archaeology became a thing soon after when people started looking at shipwrecks. Yes, actually, when he started doing, they didn't know what they were doing, so they didn't know about things like the bends and other health issues associated with
How to
it.
decompress.
Yeah, yep. And now we have that dive science down.
Is that dive science still changing? Are there things that you're able to do now that you weren't able to do, say, 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, the dive science is definitely changing. I'd say the biggest thing now is they realize if you actually mix up the air that's in your tank with a certain higher percentage of nitrogen, you can actually stay under longer and dive more.
So it's like a little cocktail. It's like, I want a little more of this. I want a little more of that.
Exactly, yeah. And actually oxygen becomes toxic when you go deep enough. So people start hallucinating off straight air when they go underwater.
That feels like a movie, like a sci-fi movie that would have come out in the late 80s, early 90s of oxygen. The humanity is living at the bottom of the ocean. Oxygen is toxic.
Definitely.
Toxygen.
Oxygen.
What's kind of the coolest dive that you've been on?
Oh man, coolest dive, Egypt. There is a World War II ship that's underwater. It was a British ship called the SS Thistlegorm. And you can dive into it, and it literally still has the tanks and the tires from the motorcycles and the trucks from World War II on it.
Now, for dives like that, or rather wrecks like that, is there ever any ambition of bringing them up, or is it always an observational type of thing?
That's usually a conversation between governments about whether or not to bring that up. That wreck specifically, there's rumors that it had some sensitive World War II intel on it, and so there's a whole middle section that's completely empty that people have speculated was probably top secret
I have never heard about the archaeology of skate parks,
Oh, okay, yes, yeah.
which I know you were very excited to talk about.
Yeah. So I teach a class at UCLA called the Anthropology of Skateboarding, and we cover all the sort of cultural history elements of skateboarding, from the music to the filming and photography, and of course the culture itself. Interestingly enough, on land, objects and places that are 50 years or older are considered historical. So we're at a point now where there are historic skate parks that are out there, and it gets to get some interesting intel. You know, what kind of things people were skateboarding.
Does it like to tell you about like youth culture?
It tells you a lot about youth culture. There's interesting things, all kinds of things about skateboarding. One of the biggest things that was interesting, I found out fairly recently, was that pool skateboarding actually came about as a result of a drought that happened in Southern California, and people had to empty out their pools essentially. And so skaters
That's so
would jump in
crazy.
people's backyards. And
Because like
skate.
that's so iconic for like Southern California.
Yeah.
Is to skateboard in a pool, and like I've seen that a bunch of times, and I've never questioned.
Yeah.
I just assumed that someone had a drained pool, but that makes so much sense, and that's so part of California's history is droughts.
Yeah. In the 70s, there was a group called the N-Men, and they used to go around with a van that was like pool cleaning service. And
Wink, wink.
they would go to abandoned houses and skate their pools.
I love that.
Have you met Tony Hawk? Like, would you consider him one of our greatest skateboarding figures that you would do an oral history with?
Definitely. You know, he definitely is popular. He's definitely most widely known, but he has done so much for the sport of skateboarding that, yeah, it's undeniable. I did get a chance to meet him. I met him pretty locally here at the Skateboarding Hall of Fame, which was pretty cool.
We have a little game, This or That, where we're going to present 2 items to you and then ask you 1,000 years from now, which is one that you think would give us more information and be a cooler discovery.
Okay, I'm ready.
So first up, a fork and a wrench,
1,000 years from now, we're thinking future.
the bottom of the ocean.
Bottom of the ocean. I'd probably say the fork. One, because 1,000 years from now, we probably won't know what that thing is. And
Really?
what people used it for. Yeah. I guess 1,000 years, yeah, people didn't really use forks 1,000 years ago.
That's true.
But yeah, it would be interesting. And then I would probably spend 10 years just trying to figure out what people were eating underwater with a fork, only to realize that it wasn't even used underwater.
So he's into what, maybe it was for farming.
Yeah. Scraping the bottom.
Well, I think it's a dinglehopper, I believe, is the correct term that
Whatchamacallit?
Scuttle says.
Yeah.
Yes, and it is a well-known hairbrush device. I have brushed my hair with a fork before out of necessity. No, I don't recommend though.
This Kirby musical note that doesn't have batteries, but it will make sound and make music.
Okay.
Or this Jabba the Hutt without arms.
Oh man, I am a Star Wars fan, so I would go with Jabba the Hutt.
Ultima 5 Warriors of Destiny by Lord British. This is a computer game?
Probably like what, 2006?
Is this like DOS?
Or this Firewire that you might need to play Ultima.
Oh wow, I'm into Ultima's 5. I'm wondering what 4, 3, 2, and 1 look like, but it must have been successful because there's a 5.
Clearly, yeah. What might this tell someone 1,000 years from now about, well, our producer Andy's preferences,
Yeah.
but also society at large? The last one's like even more out there. But like Aveeno sunscreen versus the Mystic Knights at the Oingo Boingo Band concert poster.
Wow. Yeah, I have found bottles like that in the ocean before. I would say that the bottle is actually probably more telling of the fact that like people were there probably sunbathing or doing something on the water.
So this has no value whatsoever.
I'm not gonna say no value, but yeah.
So we can tell Andy's wife she is welcome to throw this out.
Yeah, there was
If
actually
she'd
a
like to.
sub-goal for
Don't
this one.
don't put it at the bottom of the ocean. I'll say that.
Can you give us some other examples of artifacts that you found that maybe like would surprise us with the value that they offer?
Yeah, we often find bottles, glass bottles. Oftentimes they're like wine bottles, and people think that people were just getting drunk all the time, which did happen a lot. There was a lot of drinking that occurred. Oftentimes alcohol was actually more sanitary than regular water. There's actually like a whole morphology, typology of bottles that we can tell generally when a wreck occurred based off of the formation of the bottles.
Oh, so you can like tell by what it's made with when it was made?
Yeah,
sort
what
of
it was
thing?
made with, and also like the design of it. And there was a wreck found off the coast of Europe with wine bottles with wine still in them, and I believe it was like a few hundred years old, and actually sold at auction for like $4 million.
Yeah, people are gonna. Because people like, there's like a level of rich where like all of a sudden you're collecting wine you're never gonna drink.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, you just pass
What?
it down to whoever, and somebody wants to drink 200-year-old liquids.
They're gonna have a night.
Yeah.
Nicole, you died again, correct?
I did. I died a few times.
Okay.
This past time I died in a cave, and I couldn't tell if I had already died or if I was trapped. Turns out I was trapped and then died.
Oh no! I mean, this is like night diving when
Yeah.
when we go down at night. It can get tricky and hairy like that. There is a whole series of underwater archaeology that deals with caves and cave diving. I stay away from that. People say cave diving is probably the most dangerous activity you could do.
Spelunking and stuff.
Yeah.
That, no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Not for me.
No, thank you.
Yeah, if you're not careful, you don't know how deep you are, and it can also lead to a whole bunch of other issues.
On a lighter note, though, we are on an alien planet.
We are.
And the question we said we wouldn't ask, but we have to ask: archaeology, aliens at the bottom of the ocean. Do these go hand in hand?
You would expect I would say no, but there is a lot of stuff at the bottom of the ocean that we just don't know of yet. There's a number of expeditions that happen that are actually live streamed from vessels like the Schmidt Ocean Institute and others, where they'll literally find new species live for people to explore.
I've seen a bunch of the TikToks.
You seen them?
Yeah.
I mean, there's like medicinal elements to some of these marine life that we still don't know the full scope of. And probably 50 years ago, we didn't realize like things can live at the bottom of the ocean with a lack of sunlight. And that opened up
Right.
a whole new world. Like, how are these things
yeah.
breathing and living?
The ocean's only, what, like 7 miles deep? It's like not that deep, right? When you think of.
It's pretty deep. 7 miles deep is pretty deep.
Well, I mean, like, if you think about, we're looking to space,
Yeah.
and we're going like thousands of miles.
Yeah.
7 miles,
Yeah.
comparatively, does not really feel that.
Yeah,
like
it
that,
doesn't-
you know.
Yeah, that's true. I would say the one challenge is the pressure, like the literal pressure of going underwater. You start to feel it pretty quickly. So like within the first 150 feet, like the pressure gets pretty intense. And then you can only imagine like 7 miles down how much pressure you're dealing with.
Do you feel like we spend too much time and maybe money on space exploration when there's a perfectly good ocean that we could be putting that
We've got
effort
ocean
towards?
at home.
Yeah.
My
ocean
mom
at
would
home.
say.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think we should be doing equally, exploring both equally. A lot of astronauts actually train underwater before they go to space.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so there's underwater habitats that have been built out just to train astronauts.
Any dream discoveries? For me, it would be The Mask from the Jim Carrey movie, The Mask.
Oh,
because he
yeah.
finds that at the bottom
He
of the
does.
ocean.
That's true.
But there's a cost.
There is a big cost to pay.
Yeah, I do want to dive on Port Royal. It was one of the wealthiest cities in the Western Hemisphere in the 1600s, but it's off the coast of Jamaica. Actually, if you fly into Jamaica, into Kingston, you land on top of Port Royal, but it's all underwater now, or most of it's underwater.
Wow.
Because of an earthquake. And a lot of people don't dive it now just because currents are intense and a whole bunch of other things, but there's literally like an entire city underwater there.
Are there protected waters where it would be really neat to investigate, but you just obviously can't go into them?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of protected waters here in the United States. A lot of them are more protected for fishing,
Like
and so forth.
trawling and
Yeah.
stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, there actually is like a 16th century Chinese wreck that's off the coast of Catalina.
Do you need to get permits or anything for some of these?
Yeah, all of that work
Yeah.
you need to get permits for. Yeah.
If I didn't want someone to go near a wreck because of like espionage reasons, I would also say there was a protected species there.
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
that's a good
That's
lie.
That's a good cover up. You're right.
What
You're right.
aliens are they hiding from
Yeah, well,
us?
did you all hear about how the Titanic was found? That was like a Navy operation that they had to cover
yeah.
up. Yeah.
What? No.
Yeah. Bob Ballard writes about it in his book where the Navy contracted him to look for essentially a Navy vessel or something that went down on a boat. And he said he would do it as long as he got to look for the Titanic afterwards. And so they
Give me
framed
one
it
look.
as him looking for the Titanic when he was really doing like a Navy op first.
You haven't touched a fish, Nicole.
You know, they're fast.
They are
Maybe that one?
fast.
Oh.
It feels weird to be like, I'm gonna catch you. Look,
Oh, you got him.
Yeah.
caught a fish
Hey!
with my bare hand.
He's got an eye on
and-
top of his head.
Yeah, sure does.
Can you bring him to
And
the
you can't
surface with
breathe.
you?
Ooh, you know, I kind of got distracted showing off my fish. So we both died together. Well, he probably lived. I'm gonna respond, don't worry about it.
Justin, thank you so much for joining us
Oh, thank y'all.
and
It's great.
talking about your work. Is there anywhere online that people can go check out more of your work?
Yeah, UCLA website. You can just Google my name, Justin Dunavant.
We can take your classes too.
You can take my classes if you're in the area. Yep, I teach mostly terrestrial archaeology classes at the moment, but we're going to be teaching some underwater classes soon.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Thank you so much to everyone who has been watching the show and subscribed to the new channel. Nicole, how can they continue to support us?
You can continue to support us by checking out pbssocal.org/gamer. Find out how to donate. Make any donation you're comfortable with. We need your support now more than ever, and we appreciate it so much. And thanks in advance.
And we'll do another breath hold.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's do it again. Okay, I'm back
Okay,
at the
ready?
game. I'm like in the zone. All right, 3, 2, 1.